Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope your week is going well and everyone has enjoyed a little longer weekend we had. I know that I keep getting confused this week on what day it is, since Monday was a holiday. I'm glad you all have been joining me this last week. If you have missed every day I've gone live, or one day I actually made a post about helpful nap tips. So we've been talking about nap tips, and every day I've given some of really good tips about what do you need to start looking at and what do you need to start implementing to help your little one sleep better, to prepare us for today about what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about earlier bedtimes and what do we do for those serial catnappers. So I love it because I call them the serial catnapper because it's what they do constantly. They catnap. You have short naps, you have choppy naps, you have inconsistent naps, and naps will drive you crazy. And it's not just newborns or babies. A lot of times we see nap issues with toddlers and preschoolers because naps are very precise science. They can literally change if you have a nap, a little one on a couple naps a day, they can literally change from morning nap to afternoon nap. They can change from one day to the next. So they're always constantly changing. And once you have the naps down and your child has that foundation of putting themselves to sleep for the nap and lengthening the nap, it's much easier to adjust because they have those foundations of putting themselves to sleep and linking the cycles on their own. But they can still change and you can still have to tweak them. So first I want to talk about, we're going to dive into earlier bedtimes. Earlier bedtimes is a big thing. A lot of families come to me and they just, from their, maybe the schedules, work schedules, you have to go to bed later, or maybe it's just come into place that your child is going to bed later than you would like them to. Some families later is 9 to 10. Other families were 7:30, 8:30, and that's too late for them, and wondering how we can move those bedtimes up. The first thing I want to talk about is at each stage, what are we talking about a normal bedtime range? Because newborns are not going to have the same, bedtime as a toddler. Probably going to be a little different. So when we're looking at newborns, and that means anywhere from 0 up until 3 months, a normal bedtime can be anywhere between 8 and 11 p.m. Now, 11 p.m. obviously sounds very, very late. Of course, it would be for a toddler. But the internal clock and how the sleep is set up in newborns is very different from a baby, an older baby. So they might go to sleep, 10 o'clock at night, get a longer stretch, wake, eat, and then sleep a little later in the morning. That's normal at the newborn age. Once we get to that 4 to 6 month range, we're looking anywhere between 6 and 8 p.m. can be normal. Again, between 4 and 6 months, you're usually on 3 naps a day. So therefore, when you're on 3 naps a day, a lot of times you have that last cat nap of the day that bridges the gap till bedtime. So sometimes in the 4 to 6 month range, you might be going to bed in between 7 and 8 o'clock at night too. Toddlers and preschoolers. Usually a good spot for toddlers and preschoolers anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30. Give or take a little bit. Sometimes it might be 7:45 up to 8, depending on when their nap landed. But 6:30 to 7:30 is normal. So those are the ranges you want to look at for each age. So first think about how old is your baby in those ranges. Do you have a newborn? Do you have an older baby? Do you have a toddler or preschooler? And let's think about when they need to go to sleep. When we're talking about moving their bedtimes up, let's say you have a 14-month-old that's going to bed at 9 o'clock right now, and they're up for a long time from their nap until bedtime. Usually, it's really hard on your internal clock if they're going to bed at 9 and you to just start going to bed at 6:30. That's a huge change. Just like us, if we're used to going to bed at midnight and we're trying to get in the bed at 9, usually it doesn't go well for you just to start trying to go to bed at 9. We need to slowly move that bedtime back. I say anywhere between 10 and 20-minute increments, you can start moving the bedtime earlier, adjust that internal clock. It's similar to when we either fall back in the fall or spring forward in the spring with our time changes. One of the things I do is I really adjust the entire day of the schedule from wake up, naps, and bedtime by about anywhere between 10 and 20-minute increments. to move it up so it's an easier adjustment on your child's internal clock and helps them get into a better groove going to bed earlier. If they are over 6 months, if you're really set on trying to get a more set schedule with your little one, you might look at by the clock, BTC, which is by the clock naps, by the clock wakings, and bedtime. Usually what happens is you kind of set, this is when they're going to wake for the day, especially if you are a family that has to get up, they've got to get out the door to daycare. You know you're going to be home at a certain time every day. Maybe you're going to try and plan out the naps a little better, or if you have a toddler or preschooler, you might say we're going to wake at 6:30 a.m., we're going to nap at 12:30, and we're going to be in the bed at 7. So you're setting those by the clock so the internal clock can start to get set on those set times of when you want to sleep. If you're using wake windows is how long should your little one be awake. If we have a 6-month-old and they need to be awake 2 hours and 15 minutes, making sure that that last nap of the day until bedtime is not too long. The biggest problem I always see is your little ones, when they have that last nap of the day, sometimes they're going 3, 4, 5 hours until bedtime. And that's a really long wake window for infants and even some toddlers. It's much too long. Then what happens is they get revved up, they get that second wind of energy before bedtime, and now we have a little one that's wired because their wake window was so long, and now they're wired, struggling to go to sleep. We can't get the natural melatonin set in place, all of those things. So it's really important that you are aware of the wake window, especially the last one of the day is not too long. Now that we talked about the bedtimes and how we can adjust them and what we should be looking at and getting them earlier, let's move into day sleep, because the day sleep is going to affect your night sleep. First of all, day sleep and night sleep are very different, and we've talked about this, and I've talked about this week in my naps, that night sleep, we have melatonin set in place, we have sleep pressure built up, we have where we're supposed to get into longer, deeper stretches of sleep overnight. We don't have that during the day. So we've got to really know that day sleep is much more precise, where we're actually looking at minutes of when they need to go down. And if you have a baby or a child that's even missed a wake window or missed their sleep period within 10 minutes, it can actually make for a tough nap. Going down to nap can be hard. It can make for a short and choppy nap. Your naps may not be even 30 minutes long. We might have those cat nappers because we missed their sleep signs and we missed the window to get them down for sleep. Newborns, if we're going to talk about newborns cannot have set schedules, or we cannot set length of nap for newborns. That's not how their day sleep works. Newborns is very much about they might wake, eat, change their diaper, tickle them, play with their toes, and they're ready to go back to sleep. They have very short wake windows. They have very little periods to be up, and that's a lot of work for them. Them being awake, moving, diaper changes is a lot of stimulation. It's a lot of work for their body, and they're ready to go to sleep. Newborn sleep cycles are different than older baby sleep cycles. Once we get to 3 or 4 months old, a baby's sleep cycles start to change. They start to look more like an older baby. So they might be waking around that 30 to 40 minute marker after a nap. The reason they wake is because they have one sleep cycle. Now they're wide awake. And now, especially if you were putting them to sleep a certain way, you were rocking them to sleep, feeding them to sleep, helping them to sleep in some way, they're going to wake and look for you to do that again. And they're going to need you to put them back to sleep. So that's why if you have a little one around that 4-month marker, if you've been rocking them or putting them to sleep by motion, we really want to start removing that, because now it can actually interrupt their sleep patterns. It's not the most restorative sleep when we've got naps on the go or naps moving, those type of things. We want to start moving away from that. One rule that I like to apply is keeping a little one in the crib for an hour. Once you start working on nap consistency and nap work, if you have a little one that's in that 4 to 6 month range and beyond, I love keeping them in the crib for 1 full hour from the time they fell asleep to work on it, work on lengthening out that sleep cycle. How you choose to get them back to sleep or help them back to sleep will be on what method you're using and what techniques. to keep them in there for that full hour. Up until about 3 months old, babies can drift from one sleep cycle to the next very easily. Again, their non-REM and REM sleep are different than an older baby's and ours, so they're able to go in and out of sleep very easily. So that's why you could be at the store, you could be at a rock concert, you could be outdoors, and they're going to fall asleep and stay asleep and then wake up and then put themselves back to sleep because the sleep patterns are much different up until about 3 months of age. So young babies have active sleep and they have quiet sleep. Active sleep's entered right after falling asleep, so it's similar to REM sleep. Active sleep is entered right after you fall asleep, really similar to our REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep in adults. They can wake more easily. They can go into quiet sleep periods, which are deeper sleep. So the quiet sleep is the deep sleep, and the active sleep is where we might see their eyes flutter. They might wake more easily. And for newborns, that's split 50-50, active and quiet, where they're in the not as deep sleep, and then when they're in the deeper sleep. So it's split. It's great. That's why they go in and out of sleep so easily. Once we get into 3 to 4 months, then it becomes where, they don't go into those deeper periods as easily, and that's why they wake up and they need you to put them back to sleep, because they're no longer being able to go into active and quiet sleep as easily, and now they might hear a noise and it wakes them up. There might be a bright light and they notice and it wakes them up at the 30-minute marker. That's where around 3 to 4 months that sleep environment really becomes important, because their sleep cycles are changing during the day. They're changing on when they go into REM sleep and non-REM sleep, so it's really important to note those things. So between 3 to 4 months, the baby wakes more abruptly after one sleep cycle, and it's really hard to get them back to sleep. That's what I was talking about earlier, is if they become dependent on something or someone, they're going to need you or that prop to help put them back to sleep. When we talk about our sleep and older baby sleep, we're talking about REM sleep is your light sleep and non-REM is your deeper sleep. So the REM sleep is where we dream, we can be woken up more easily, and the non-REM sleep is your deep sleep. So that's where it's really hard to wake a baby. If you've ever noticed when sometimes you'll say it's really hard to wake them, that's when they were in their non-REM sleep, which is that deep sleep happening. The timing of your naps, again, is very, very important. If a wake window is missed, even by a few minutes, it's going to cause issues. I like to also say, when you're going to work on nap consistency and we're trying to lengthen out those naps, first you have to make sure your bedtime is on track. You've got to make sure that your little one has a solid bedtime routine. They're falling asleep easily at bedtime. They are falling asleep on their own at bedtime. Then you could start working on that overnight, where they're clicking that of putting themselves to sleep, falling asleep, getting longer stretches of sleep overnight. Then the best nap of the day to work on is nap 1. You need to work on nap 1, getting them to fall asleep independently. Once they wake up, getting them to link that cycle first. Then you can start working on the other naps of the day in the crib. It doesn't usually work well if you think, okay, we're going to start nap work. I really want you to sleep longer in your crib, and I'm going to start with the last nap of the day. That does not always go very well, because, again, that nap is later in the day. It's close to bedtime. So if you're going to start working on crib naps, let's start on nap 1. That's very important. I mentioned this the other day on one of the nap tips, that you want to be sure that you're not putting them down too early for nap 1. A lot of times what happens is, say you have early morning rising issues, and so your little one was up for the day at 4:45, so you think they're exhausted and we've got to put them back down at 7. What happens is, a lot of times that's a continuation of overnight sleep, as well as it messes up and causes problems for the rest of the naps of the day. And then you can even see a short, choppy nap happening because we didn't give them the proper first nap time. It was much too early and too close to when they were waking up from overnight sleep, even though they woke earlier. So try your best to not put them down too early for that first nap. So if you're just joining us, we have a lot of information that I've covered already. Earlier bedtimes, the first part of this was about earlier bedtimes, what's appropriate for each age, how should we move up those bedtimes, and then we went into naps. What are some of the most important things to remember about naps and how we can get our little ones to nap longer and increase those naps. Yesterday there was a comment from someone who asked about, they have a child that sleeps well overnight. It's a 9-month-old, but they are still struggling with 40-minute naps a day. So the baby is sleeping for one sleep cycle and then waking. The biggest thing you need to make sure is for the naps, each nap, they are having a mini nap routine in place. You're hitting the wake windows correctly, or if you're doing by the clock, they're going down at the exact time they need to for the nap. They're falling asleep on their own for the nap. And when they wake at that 40-minute marker, you need to assess and understand which method you would like to use or how you would like to go about getting them to link that sleep cycle. Are you going, remember we want to keep them 1 full hour in the crib. So are you going to do more firmer approaches? You might choose some extinction or graduated extinction. If that's your choice, you might want to do more hands-on approaches. You might want to be guiding them and helping them to try and settle them back to sleep when they wake mid-nap. So the biggest thing is we have to give them the tools to help them link those cycles. Now at 9 months old, one of the biggest things is you have to make sure that if their last nap ended, let's say at 2:30, that they're going to be in the bed early. And I'm talking 6 o'clock. I know that sounds insane, but what happens is if that wake window is too long from the end of the nap until bedtime, you're going to see nap issues, or you're going to see eventually early morning wakings, and we don't want that to happen. So if it's short naps, there's 2 40-minute naps that day, you were unsuccessful getting them back to sleep, and they wake at 2:30, you've got to get them in the bed even 6 o'clock at night, and then start fresh the next day. Sorry we're late. Our one didn't want to take a nap. That's funny, Robin, that today we're talking about naps and they did not want to nap. That's okay. If you're just joining, be sure and know that you can always catch this live after it's over. And what I wanted to talk about also was where these are at, so you can easily find them, so you're not scrolling through the news feed in this group trying to find them. At the top of your screen when you're in Serenity Sleeper Sleep Squad, when you come to this group at the very top where it has like announcements and people, there's a little button that says units. If you click units, it's going to take you to all these videos and trainings that I've done over the last few months, and I've actually put them into categories. So I have a newborn section, I have a nap section, I have various sections, and you can be like, oh, I've got a newborn, I need to go check out these videos. Just click on that, go to units, click on it, find the newborn link, and you can find all the videos. If you have a little one that's nap struggles and you're looking for nap tips, go to the units at the top, go find naps, and it'll be all laid out there. If you're on your desktop or iPad, it might be on the left-hand side. Again, it's going to be in there where it talks about announcements, people, and you'll see units. I wanted to organize that for you, so again, you weren't trying to scroll around or always search in the comments for things. If you are, the next best way to do things is go to the search button in the group and type in your questions. I'm struggling today with words. Go in there and type in, nap help or newborn sleep, and it's going to pull up all the comments, questions that have been asked, the videos, the blog posts, and it'll pop everything up there for you. If you have additional questions and you really are struggling with your little one and you need to chat one-on-one, let's do it. I'm going to leave my calendar invite in the comments. I will tell you I'm already booking into middle of June right now. Families are ready to get on board and want that one-on-one support to better sleep. Another little goodie that I'm offering, if you have a toddler or preschooler, I'm launching my big program this summer in June. I'm really excited. We're going to be talking all about toddler and preschool sleep. It's going to be help from me, but in a group environment, and it's going to set up as a program where you're going to have access to all the documents, all the information for this group, what we're going to do, how we're going to help your little one. We're going to have I'm going to have trainings like this. I'm going to record videos for you. I'm going to have a private group for my toddler and preschool program, and you're going to have access to me daily in that group, and I'm really excited about that too. So make sure you're watching out for all of that if you have a toddler or preschool coming. If you have additional questions, be sure and let me know. I'll be happy to chat with you. I hope this has been helpful, and if you did join, I would really highly recommend that you go to that units and go to the nap section and start from last week where I gave tips every single day, because then that led into what we were talking about today. So it probably will answer a lot of your questions that you might have. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will be chatting with you guys again soon. Next Thursday, we'll be here same time, different topic. Since it's June and a new month, we're going to be starting on different topics next week, so I will let you know what we're going to be talking about. Have a great rest of your day.